こんにちは。Welcome to this channel. Today's video is for Japanese beginners. Even if you've already started learning Japanese, you might discover something new, so I'll be happy if you watch the video too. それでは、Let's go! Japanese has three writing systems. ひらがな、カタカナ、漢字。Hiragana is like the alphabet of Japanese, and it's actually simpler than the English alphabet. To put it simply, everything is based on a, I, U, E, O. Almost every Japanese sound ends with one of these vowel sounds, except for N. For example, after a, I, U, E, O, you have Ke sounds, Ka, Ki, Ku, Ke, Ko, S sounds, Sa, Shi, Su, Se, So, and it continues like that. Once you learn the hiragana characters, you simply read them as they are written. I've made a hiragana learning video and made it available for free on Patreon, so be sure to check the link in the video description. Unlike English, Japanese pronunciation is usually very straightforward. The sound of a word rarely changes because of the letters around it. For example, in English, love, where did the E sound go? However, in Japanese, you can usually read words exactly as they are written. There are few exceptions in grammar. I will explain them later in this video. Once you can read hiragana, you'll be able to start reading books. Wait a minute, you might be thinking, if hiragana is so simple, why does Japanese need three writing systems? Isn't hiragana alone enough? That's a fair question. Hiragana is very useful, but it can also be difficult to read when everything is written in hiragana. For example, 私はアイスクリームが好きですが、ダイエットをしているので食べられません。I love ice cream, but I cannot eat it because I am on a diet. You can read it, but it's difficult to read quickly. That's where katakana comes in. Katakana has exactly the same sound as hiragana. The only difference is the shape of the characters. For example, a, I, U, E, O becomes a, I, U, E, O. Katakana is often used for words that comes from other languages. For example, the English word ice cream is usually written as アイスクリーム in Japanese. We normally write it in katakana アイスクリーム not アイスクリーム in hiragana. If an ice cream shop intentionally write it as アイスクリーム in hiragana, you might imagine something more traditionally Japanese, such as matcha flavored or sesame flavored ice cream. When katakana is added, the text becomes a little easier to read. 私はアイスクリームが好きですが、ダイエットをしているので食べられません。I love ice cream, but I cannot eat it because I am on a diet. Kanji is quite difficult. Kanji are like pictures and each character has its own meaning. However, the same kanji can have multiple readings. For example, the kanji this can be read as he, be, or niche, or more things depending on the context. As a beginner, you don't need to worry about kanji right now. In many cases, hiragana called hiragana is written above kanji to help you read them, so you can simply read that instead. And one day, when you are able to read kanji, the world of written Japanese will look like this. 私はアイスクリームが好きですが、ダイエットをしているので食べられません。If you are thinking about studying kanji, you don't need to be able to write it. Being able to read it is enough. That's what I think. There are also different styles of speaking in Japanese. I know. Wait, but don't leave yet. Before you giving up on learning Japanese, I want to say this first. As a beginner, it is enough to just learn polite speech. 丁寧語. For now, let me explain it simply. There are 3 types of 敬語 polite language in Japanese. 尊敬語 respectful language, 謙譲語 humble language, 丁寧語 polite language. 尊敬語 is used to elevate the other person or someone related to them. 謙譲語 is used to lower yourself or your side in order to show respect to the other person. 丁寧語 is polite speech used to make your language more formal. It is used with people you don't know well, people you are not close to, or people of higher status. It often ends with des and mas. For example, with the verb 食べる to eat. 尊敬語召し上がる。謙譲語いただく。丁寧語食べます。尊敬語 and 謙譲語 often use completely different words. You will need to learn them eventually, but the number of commonly used expressions is actually quite small, so it is not as difficult as it may seem. ため語 casual speech, informal speech is a way of speaking without using polite language, using plain verb forms instead. It is used with friends and family. Using polite language can create a sense of distance between people. Because of this, Japanese people often start using casual speech once they become close. If you ever make Japanese friends, try learning how to use casual speech, ため語. For beginners, the safest way to start is polite speech, 丁寧語, which is not rude in any situation. Pronunciation also varies across different regions of Japan, so don't worry too much about having perfect pronunciation. Next, I will explain Japanese grammar in a very simple way. English uses the word order, subject, verb, object. For example, I eat this. Japanese basically uses subject, object, verb. For example, I eat this becomes 私はこれを食べる I this eat. However, in spoken Japanese, the subject and object are often omitted. So just saying 食べる eat can already mean I eat this depending on the context. Word order in Japanese can also be flexible. For example, 私はこれを食べる can be rearranged to これを私は食べる but the meaning does not change as long as the context is clear. Now, let's add more information. I eat this with my friend at the restaurant. In Japanese, 私は友達とレストランでこれを食べる You can also change the word order. レストランで私は友達とこれを食べる Both are understandable because Japanese relies heavily on context. And even this is also correct. 友達とレストランで食べる In Japanese, the word order is flexible as long as the meaning is clear. You might have already noticed this. The hiragana, は is normally pronounced は but when it is used as a particle in a sentence, it is pronounced わ For example, in 私は the character は is read as わ This is one of the exceptions I mentioned earlier. Another example is the greeting こんにちは Even though it is written as こんにちは it is pronounced こんにちは This comes from an older expression meaning something like today is こんにちは which is why it is used the わ pronunciation. There are only a few of these exceptions, so don't worry too much about them. By the way, the particle は changes its meaning depending on the context. 私は can become 私も I also 私に to me 私の my. For example, 私はこれを食べる I eat this. 私もこれを食べる I also eat this. There are many different patterns like this, but for now, just think of it as something like different small markers that change meaning. Don't worry too much about it at this stage. By the way, you might have already noticed this, but Japanese does not have articles like a or da. Japanese also usually does not require you to specify whether something is singular or plural. For example, if I say, 私はリンゴを食べる It could mean that I eat one apple or several apples. The exact number is often understood from the context. If you want to know the number, you can simply ask how many. However, Japanese has something called counters. Different types of objects use different counters after numbers. For example, thin flat objects 1枚、2枚 Small animals 1匹、2匹 Personally, I think counters are one of the things that make Japanese more difficult than it needs to be. Next is verbs. In Japanese, the basic form of verbs usually ends with a sound from the u row. For example, 食べる食べる買う買う行く行く The ending of the verb changes. For example, with 食べる食べない I don't eat 食べた I ate 食べよう Let's eat Other examples 買う buy 買わない don't buy 買った bought 買おう Let's buy There are rules, but when speaking, you don't have time to think about grammar rules. So I think the best way is to memorize verbs as patterns. Next, adjectives. Many Japanese adjectives end in an E sound. For example, おいしい、安い、暑い. These are called E adjectives. They can directly modify nouns. おいしいご飯、安いご飯、暑いご飯。However, not all words that end in E are E adjectives. Some words like きれい and 有名 are actually na adjectives. Na adjectives need na when they come before a noun. きれいな人、有名な人。You will need to memorize which words are E adjectives and which are na adjectives.
よくここまでたどり着いたの。
In conclusion, for beginners, it is enough to learn hiragana and polite speech, 丁寧語. I have explained some basic grammar, but I believe that learning a language is more about memorizing whole phrases. The most important thing is to learn naturally without thinking too much and to feel the language. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Bye bye!